r/AskReddit. What was the dumbest thing you thought as a child? I used to think my mom was such a good shopper. She would pick out all these groceries, and when she got up to the checker, she would only give them one piece of money, and they would give her several pieces of money back, and we got to keep the groceries. That man was so stupid. Mommy, you gave him $100 bill, and he gave us back 3 $1 bills. There was an old kid's book or poem or something where a kid does this. Someone gives him $1 and he trades it for 2 quarters because 2 is more than 1, then 3 dimes, etc. He comes back with a handful of pennies and is super proud of himself. Grandparents were assigned to families. Like, I didn't know my grandma was my dad's mom. Same. I remember asking my mom, why did Uncle Greg call grandma mom? My sister and I told my nephew that we were sisters and he just kept going, no, you're not. Mind was blown further when we told him Grammy was both of our moms. LMAO. We got to do it again with my niece, same reaction. Your mom's sister. I think she was more confused because she's the only girl with 3 brothers, so having 2 girls be sisters confused her a lot. Own 2 credit cards and use them to pay for each other for infinite money. Depending on your age at the time, that's actually a pretty good understanding of credit cards for a kid. Incorrect, sure, but better than most kids understand it. Honestly, I've seen adults with a worse understanding. I knew someone who thought she could just buy whatever as long as she could make the minimum payment. You're not wrong. I had a friend who got his first credit card and thought that at the beginning of each month the card would be reloaded with the credit limit. Like a $1,000 limit meant, even if you were maximumed out last month, you'd have $1,000 more credit to use the next month. He got a student card with a low limit like $300 or something and maximumed it out right away. Then at the beginning of the next month he was perplexed and frustrated by the fact that he couldn't buy anything more with it until he paid down his balance. His rationale was something along the lines of, well, if it doesn't refill, how the hell do people end up with tens of thousands of dollars of credit card debt? They just have 100 different credit cards or something. It's a very good thing that he got roped into that low limit card as his first card. This little life lesson could have ended up costing him a lot more than it did. That the Underground Railroad was a literal secret underground subway style steam engine that Harriet Tubman was the conductor of. I don't know where I got messed up, because while I understood it wasn't a literal railroad, I did think it was literally underground. Just secret tunnels from all over leading north. I'm 26. This is what I thought. Until just now. The inside of my stomach was another village with their own villagers. Every time I drank, it rained. Every time I ate, it fed the people. A tummy ache was because the villagers were unhappy. Hey, that's the gut biome. Yeah, instead of a few villagers you have trillions. You just made me imagine a bunch of Minecraft villagers in my stomach, lol. I was vaguely aware of a TV show called Ironsides, about a lawyer in a wheelchair. Whenever I heard the word paralegal, I thought it meant a paraplegic lawyer. It made sense to me that people in wheelchairs could make excellent lawyers, based on the nature of the job and their physical limitations. I thought paralegals were lawyers who'd parachute to the scene of a crime, so people would have their story straight before the cops showed up. Like paratroopers. That is an amazing image. I used to believe that night is brought about by clouds, dark ones, of course. Never felt the need to clarify this with anybody, it was an obvious fact. I used to think trees made wind. Trees move, wind happens, can't explain that. That babies were inside their mom's literal belly. If she swallowed a cherry tomato whole, I thought it would land and bounce on the baby's head. That's adorable and terrifying all at the same time. Adorifying. I remember watching the movie Cocoon with my grandparents. I could not have been more than 4. For some reason I deduced that, in order to become adults, children had to die in these pool cocoons and be reborn old. I freaked my cousins out and had a whole group of kids crying at a holiday party over our impending doom. Ruined Christmas pictures that year. Are you by chance a caterpillar? He's probably the mighty monarch. I thought that highways functioned like airport moving walkways. Imagine how fast we could go. I used to believe that people that spoke other languages translated their language to mine in their head. OMG. I thought for years that French people thought in English, but translated things in their head before they said them. I just assumed learning/speaking French was as difficult for them as it was for me. I went to French classes from age 4. It wasn't until I was probably 11 or 12 and really thought about it that I realized they think in French. Even now I probably think in French, like seriously. I'm almost 30 and I'm not sure it's sunk in yet. As a Finnish person, I actually think in English like 50% of the time. Benefits of learning a language well. Being able to think in multiple languages makes it easy for me to keep my thoughts in line when I can just switch languages to find words that best describe something. That if people are going to study something, they just sit in a circle with other students and think about what they want to do. As soon as they find out, they are done and they can leave. I wish, lol. I like the way younger you thought. Though we'd have too many Lego engineers if that was the method. That if April was a month, Ninja Turtles must also be a month. Clearly this one by logic is true. I thought that there would be a baby inside every girl's stomach as soon as she is born, and inside that baby's stomach too there would be a tiny baby. The cycle goes on, and that the baby keeps growing as we grow, and after getting married the doctors will cut the stomach and take the baby out to make space for another baby. Well, women are reborn with all their eggs in place, but not mature cells. My uncle is a priest for an obscure Hindu offshoot religion, and he told me quite young that I shouldn't play sport because each person only gets a set number of breaths in their life, and getting out of breath use them up quicker. I used to spend hours laying in bed trying to make my breaths as long and slow as possible. In fairness, I actually have a decent lung capacity as an adult, so maybe it had a positive effect. Geez, that had to scare the hell out of you. Good breathing technique for relaxing, but not if you're afraid you're going to die. I've also heard people have a limited number of heartbeats, so you shouldn't exercise. There is some scientific backing in that. For many animals, there is some constant number of heartbeats observed, meaning that small animals with quicker heartbeats have shorter lifespans, and larger animals with slower heartbeats have longer lifespans, but the total number of heartbeats for both species is roughly equal. I forget the exact number. Humans, however, seem to not fit this rule. I do like this theory though, because it actually is a good argument for why you should exercise. Regular exercise lowers your resting heart rate, and you are resting much more often than not, so having an overall lower resting heart rate in theory could mean fewer overall heartbeats, meaning longer lifespans. So people who believe this is a reason to not exercise are wrong in multiple ways. People that died in movies really died. I was watching a movie with my dad wherein the main character had his arm cut off. I turned to my dad and asked, "That's fake, right?" And my dad, very sincerely, said no, that actor's getting paid a lot of money to have his arm cut off. And all the color drained from my face and I said, "Oh. Okay." I was in my early 20s when I had that aha moment where I realized he was messing with me. I had the opposite with my dad. I said something like, "Wow, she must have gotten paid a lot to cut her arm off for a movie," and he just looked at me like, "What are you, stupid?" I felt terrible as a kid to eat. I wouldn't eat in front of people, and every meal I would find myself thinking, Poor food, getting eaten, because I was convinced they had emotions. When I was really young, I was convinced I was pregnant. I'm a man, by the way, with a baby cat named Bridget. My family decided to see how long I would believe this, so they never told me how ridiculously impossible that was. I went on believing it for about 5 months. That's how long little me thought cat pregnancy lasted. And then when the baby never came, I went to my mom and asked when Bridget would be born. She finally told me that boys can't get pregnant and humans can't give birth to cats. I was traumatized. Little me was so excited to be a cat father, and then it was ripped away from me. I was such a stupid kid. That if you poked your belly button too hard, then it would come open like a plug and all of your internal organs would spill out. Technically, won't that happen if you poke really hard? No, there is mesentery holding the tissue in place. Something may herniate out, and more importantly, you would be prone to some crazy infections. It'd be very abnormal and concerning if all of your organs started spilling out. That the world actually used to be black and white, like it was in old movies, and even asked my mom what it felt like when all the colors suddenly appeared. I believed hamburger and hot dog buns were only available for restaurants, not civilians. Mom used sliced bread, toasted to obliterate the gums, at home to make burgers and hot dogs. I believed that until the age of 10. Can you imagine? Such dangerous items in the hands of the untrained public? Better leave it to the professionals. Not something I believed, but a harmless prank I used to play on my kids. There is a highway we use that has several long gentle curves over a 5 to 6 mile stretch. One day when my younger son complained that the sun was in his eyes, he was about 3 at the time, I had the idea to pretend that I had a personal relationship with Mr. Sun. I saw that the highway was going to curve, so I had a conversation with Mr. Sun explaining the situation and asking him to please move over so that he wasn't shining in my son's eyes. I drew out the conversation and timed it so just when Mr. Sun agreed, we would start the curve, and it looked like he was moving over and out of my son's eyes. Then after another curve, the sun would be in my other son's eyes, so I asked politely for Mr. Sun to move again, just as we went around the next curve. This went on for almost a year before my wife explained to them what was going on. It was hilarious in the meantime. Now I just gotta find a way to remember this for when I have children. I used to think adults were in full control and knew exactly what they were doing. Ever since my kids were toddlers, I've been telling them that as a dad I know everything about everything. They are quickly figuring out that's a load of bullshit. I thought the Christ on the crucifix at my elementary school was a cool man reclining on a hyper-modern, minimalist space vessel. Took him from the wall during break and made him soar through the room, dramatizing his mad flight with epic clip-generated engine sounds. Just when I staged his collision with a sandwich, the teacher came in. Jesus would approve. That there's a tiny human inside the TV who executed what the remote was telling him to do. For example, when you press the button to increase the volume, he is being hit in a specific way that lets him know that he has to go and manually increase the volume. I imagined a barracks full of tiny men living in the tap who poured out little buckets of water when I used the sink.